Okay. Hi friends, welcome back. As you can tell by the title of the video, I am considering leaving Etsy. So let's talk about it. This is the third time I have tried to record this video. So I have some notes. I want to make it as helpful as possible if you are somebody that is potentially interested in opening your first Etsy shop. If you have an Etsy shop and you'd like to improve the way it's performing, or if you are in a situation similar to mine and you're trying to make a big decision about which direction to move with your business. So I wanted to start with just some personal background about how I started making things and my history with Etsy. When I was like 6 or 7 years old, my grandma handed me a cross stitch project and I learned how to cross stitch, and then I learned how to quilt and I learned how to make clothes. I was in 4-H, so I took a sewing project every year. So making things with fabric and fiber has been a part of my daily life for as long as I can remember. My sewing machine, I leave it set up all the time. Even when we were in an apartment, I had it set up all the time. I sat down and did something every day. I crochet every day. It's very rare that I don't make something every day. So when Etsy came about, I was really excited. Sarah and Sybil is not my first Etsy shop. I actually had an Etsy shop called S.Nicole. And I remember very specifically, I had crocheted, it was like a coffee cozy, but it went around your mug. And I had this black steamer trunk that was our coffee table in my husband and I, one of our first apartments. And I was like trying to get really artsy with the pictures to like upload it. And I wish I could find it because I still have this book. I'm just not sure where it is. It was an Etsy handmade business like manual. It wasn't promoted by Etsy. It was like a person that had it published, and it didn't have anything in there about social media marketing because that like wasn't a thing, like nothing about Pinterest, none of that. I think it probably had some SEO stuff for like Google or how Etsy worked specifically, but there was none of the like all the stuff that kind of goes into it now. A lot of that was not a factor back then. So it was just interesting to go back and look at it and see how things have evolved over time. So at the time, it was really funny because it was like a really big deal if you got featured on the Etsy curated homepage and you would get an email and it would be like, you got featured, like congrats. And that happened once and I was so excited, and I remember that it was a really big deal. But I had started a career in animal welfare, so I kind of went off and did some different things. I wasn't trying to grow my Etsy at that time, but I did start that shop. And I think that probably would have been in like 2009 or 2010. Then I opened Sarah and Sybil in 2015. And I actually opened it kind of as a means of payment for a family member that wanted me to make some stuff for them. And we lived out of state at the time, and I wasn't sure how to like take payment from her. So I opened the Etsy shop kind of for that. But I had, my son was born that year. I had made him a lot of baby things like burp cloths and shoes and bibs, and quilting was something I was still really interested in. So I decided I have fabric, I have supplies, and I'm just gonna go ahead and like list some things and see how they do. So at first it was like some clothing items, shoes, bibs, and quilts. And I took custom quilt orders so people could contact me and say, my nursery is in these colors or this theme. and I would curate fabric and, make and ship that. I did a couple of quilt drops where I would pick a theme, make some small quilts, and list them all at the same time. That was really fun. And that's how I got started. And then in 2016, that's when I listed my first play crown. And it was really fun to try something new. I wanted it to feel like a little quilt. That was kind of the intention of it. And then I started making play capes and wands. And that was really fun to like pick different colors and try different things. And then I was invited to participate with a subscription box. So I think I have a picture of, I was super pregnant with Ida and it was like my first big wholesale order, and I had a stack of red play capes that I was sending to this subscription box. And so when the boxes started going out, people were tagging me because they had received my product, and that was really exciting. And Etsy has opened doors for me over time, and it has historically been a good thing for me and my family. When my daughter Ida was maybe like 8 or 9 months old, my husband had been in the Navy. He got out of the Navy. We were moving, and I went back to working full time. So I put the Etsy shop on vacation, or I took all the listings down, and I took a break from Etsy. And I didn't want to close it entirely because it still felt significant and important to me, but I wasn't sure that I was going to open it back up in the same capacity, if I wanted to change what I was doing. Options. So it stayed closed for a little while, and then I was working a full-time job, and I liked the job itself, but I didn't love the environment I was in. I was working for a corporate company, basically in merchandising, like setting up new seasonal sets in stores, which actually I enjoyed that, but I didn't want to stay in that environment. So I was trying to think of ways that I could use my personal skill set to create income for myself in a way I hadn't before. So I was also in yoga teacher training, which some of you probably don't know. I'm a certified yoga instructor. And if you want maybe like a recorded yoga for creatives, or like yoga for crocheters or something, let me know in the comments, because I think that could be really fun to record if it's something you guys are interested in. As a side note. Okay, so I started my Etsy back up. I was teaching yoga. I was able to leave the full-time job, and I got a part-time job, and then eventually I was able to leave the part-time job and work from home full-time. I have since gone back to the part-time job because I have learned that I need to get out of the house a couple of days a week, because I kind of like lose all sense of routine. Like, it's just really healthy for me to have something outside of the home to work on. So I'm working part-time now in addition to doing Etsy. But my point is that Etsy created a really big opportunity for myself and my family as far as reaching an audience of people that were interested in my products, which kind of brings us up to date. I had relisted the crowns when I reopened the Etsy shop because they had sold the best out of what I had made previously. I started personalizing them. Back in 2016, when I started making the crowns, it wasn't really a saturated market. I don't think many people were making them. When I relisted them and started selling them again a few years ago, other people were making them. It's a much more saturated market, so it is a lot different now than it used to be. And I'll get more into that a little bit later, but that's kind of where I'm at now. I've been making the crowns for a few years. I've tried to shift and evolve in different ways. So we'll get all into that in a little bit, but I just wanted you guys to have an understanding of my background as a person, as well as my background with Etsy. When I hit, I think it was like 1,000 sales, my aunt sent me a card that was like, congratulations. And in it, she said, like, I remember when you were 15 or 16 and you said what you wanted to do as your career was sell things on eBay because Etsy didn't exist yet. So this type of work has always been my passion. So it feels really good to still be focusing on it, but the focus changes and evolves over time. So next I want to talk about the pros and cons of Etsy. Pros. If you do not have a big social media following or a lot of clientele, Etsy drives a lot of its own traffic, which will be really, really helpful to you as a business owner starting out. There is low overhead with Etsy initially. What else? The back end is nice, being able to see your analytics, being able to print your shipping labels. It breaks things into categories that are easily accessible and easy to understand, and I appreciate all of that. Cons are fees, and a lot of people that are interested in opening Etsy shops often say that a barrier for them is the fees. And I do have to say, Etsy, Shopify, Squarespace markets, there's fees. Period. There just are. Some are less than others, but for the amount of traffic I was getting from Etsy up to this point, the fees have been worth it for me. So if you're driving a lot of your own traffic from your social media or from your presence in the community, a website that you own would likely serve you better in the long run. But if you're just starting out, Etsy's not so bad. So you will find in this video that there are pros and cons, like I said, but I do not hate Etsy as a platform. So that's something I know a lot of people have a lot of really strong feelings about Etsy. I do too. I'm not going to talk about all of them, but I will just say it has benefited me in the past, and I appreciate that it exists. So those are some pros of Etsy. Some other cons, once you kind of have your shop set up and you're making some sales, aside from the fees, some cons are they've like hidden the item description, which really bothers me, especially if you're on mobile. You have to really know where to look through the item description. And so what I have done, and this could be a tip for you if it's something that you're struggling with, because a lot of people will see your item and they have questions about how big it is, what materials it's made out of, what the shipping time is like. And if they can't find that in the item description because it's hidden, they're going to send you messages or they're going to move on to something else. So if you have a lot of frequently asked questions, I recommend creating slides to put in photo space. So I have slides in my photo space that has all of the color options, shipping information, some about me information. This is also useful if you struggle with getting pictures of your item, or there's only a couple, like if you sell a sign, there's really only a couple of ways to take a picture of the sign or the details, and you have, I think it's 10 photo spaces, and they really want you to fill up all 10 photo spaces. And if you're having trouble doing that, I recommend making slides with product information, with about me information, with shipping information, and plug those into the photo spaces, because the more the listing is filled out, the better or more well received it is in the Etsy algorithm. So hiding the item description for me has been a con, because it requires a lot more of my time fielding questions, which I don't mind answering questions, but they really want you to answer them within a certain time frame, etc., etc. When often the information is right in the item description, but customers can't find it. So that does create a problem, in my opinion. Another thing I don't love about Etsy is once someone finds your item, they like it, they clicked on it, they're looking through it. If they scroll all the way down past all of the information and the drop-down menus and all of that, at the bottom, they are recommended items that are similar to yours but are made from other people, which there's competition. Those items were probably listed on the page that they got to you from, but I just don't love that when somebody has clicked on my thing and that's a big deal that they've done that, they are then suggested to move away from my page. I just don't love that. I wish that there was maybe a different way to go about that. I think that's all I'm going to say about pros and cons. Those are my thoughts right now on that. So now let's talk about some general tips or general information about if you're an Etsy seller, new, or if you've been there for a while but you're looking to improve things. So listings develop a quality score. And items that sell repetitively have more opportunity to develop a high quality score. Items that are one of a kind, handmade or vintage, have less ability to develop this quality score, whether it's a good item or you're a good seller or not. So basically the quality score is how I understand it is that it is comprised of how many people are searching for a thing, how many there's search for your item, right? How many people click on that item, how many people that click on that item are purchasing the item, and how many people that are purchasing the item are receiving the item shipped on time and meeting the description in which they were expecting. So they're leaving a high rating, basically. So how many people are searching it, how many people are clicking on it, how many people are purchasing it, and how many of those purchases result in a high rating or a satisfied customer. So if you have a one-off item, it gets purchased one time, and so it doesn't really develop a quality score. So your stuff's not going to land high in a landing page unless someone searches for that very specific thing. So what I recommend if you have vintage items or if you have one-of-a-kind items or ready-to-ship items is to group like with like. So if you have a lot of vintage mugs, for instance, I personally would not recommend listing them all individually. I would group similar mugs together and make sure that they are labeled clearly so that people can do mug 1, mug 2, or however you want to, by color, by name, whatever. That way, people can purchase one or multiple of those items, and that listing is going to gain more traction and gain a higher quality score because it is receiving more clicks, purchases, and ratings. I hope that made sense. I am not an Etsy expert by any means. This is just like my personal experience and understanding of how it works. So that's a tip. Those are tips. A bonus. As a shopper, if you're a shopper, there are a lot of things that are trademarked that you might not expect. So, for instance, the word onesie is trademarked by the Gerber Company. And the Gerber Company will come after sellers that use the word onesie in their titles or tags. So I think a lot of people use like bodysuit. But if you get on Etsy and you search for something specifically and you're just not getting the results that you're hoping for, change up how you're searching it. Because if I get on there and I say like blah, 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 onesie, but nobody's using the word onesie because they've all gotten in trouble or they're threatened to be in trouble if they use that word, you're not going to find what you're looking for. On the reverse of that, not necessarily about trademarks, but if you're an Etsy seller, ask people, what is this thing? Just give them a picture of your item and say, how would you describe this? What is this to you? Because you as the maker understand the materials and the intricacies of what you made, but people purchasing might not if they're unfamiliar with that thing. So like my crowns, I would just call them a crown, birthday crown. But some people call them a crown hat. Some people call them a crown headband. And I initially didn't realize that until people started sending me messages saying, I ordered a hat, I ordered a headband, etc. And so I started incorporating those words into my titles and tags because that's the words people were searching. That's what they would use to describe my item. So it's really helpful to have outside perspective about how somebody unfamiliar with your craft would describe your item, because then you can incorporate those descriptions into your titles and tags. So that's another thing. So why am I leaving? That's why we're all here. Let's talk about it. So like I mentioned towards the beginning of the video, the crowns are more saturated. There's a lot of people making them at a lot of different price points. There's a lot of people making them that have different circumstances than me. People that have had, you know, press releases in magazines, people that have employees or production partners and are able to charge for their items differently. Their business structure is different than mine. And so over time, I have tried to adjust to meet market needs and also meet my personal needs. And what I have found is that I do not thrive as a person making custom orders only. So I like to read. I'm a mood reader. And when I am in the mood to read romance, don't hand me a fantasy. And when I'm in the mood to read fantasy, don't hand me a romance. Like, once I know what I want, that's what I want to do. And I'm a little bit of a mood maker, and getting myself motivated to create a custom item that I'm not really in the mood to make has become increasingly difficult over the years. And in 2023, I started going to in-person markets. And markets are a whole different ballgame from Etsy because you have to build up a lot of inventory ahead of time. Now, you can do that on Etsy and work in like drops. I made a bunch of this thing. I'm going to drop it on this date. You can totally do that online. I've never tried to do that on Etsy. That might be something I try in the future. But as I was market prepping for markets last year, I found that being able to create a lot of one item when I was in the mood to create that item just worked a lot better for my workflow. It fit my needs better. And so I'm working a part-time job, like I said. I have the Etsy shop open. I'm still receiving these crown orders and orders for Kindle covers. And I'm also trying to market prep for a lot of really big markets this fall. I think I have 2 one-day markets, 2 two-day markets, and 2 three-day markets between August and December. And I need a lot of inventory for it. So if I'm working and I get off, or if I have a day off entirely, that time is consumed by creating the orders and shipping them out, and I'm not able to market prep. And when it comes down to it, I just simply enjoy market prep more right now. And that's why I'm considering leaving Etsy. It's more of a time management issue and a personal needs thing. So right now I have, I think, 3 listings on Etsy. I have plain crowns and I have the Kindle covers, and I intend to keep it that way for a little while. I do want to create some tutorials that I will post here on YouTube and patterns to sell on Etsy, but I do not intend to take many custom orders for the foreseeable future. So am I leaving Etsy? No, and yes. I am leaving Etsy in the way I have been working. So I will not continue to work on Etsy in the way I have for the past 9 years. I'm going to be really thinking hard about how I want to list things on Etsy, how I want to use Etsy as a platform that serves me. So I don't hate Etsy entirely as a platform. I don't think it's a bad idea if you are a new business, or if you want to try things out, or if you want to, because I mean, I remember when I first started, I didn't have the money to go and buy a bunch of fabric to have on hand. So when people would order something, I would get the money, I would go buy the stuff, I would make it and ship it. So if you are in that situation where when somebody orders something, you're using that money to go buy your supplies, like, I don't think Etsy is a bad option, which I know a lot of people have a lot of really strong feelings about Etsy, and that's totally okay. Some people have been burned, some people have had different experiences than I have, but in my opinion, Etsy has opened a lot of doors for me, and I don't dislike the platform as a whole. There are things that I wish I could change about it, like the amount of drop shipping and stuff that's happening is really, not okay, in my opinion. But that is the reality we're in, and I really hope, it seems like they're trying to clean it up, and I really hope that they get it back under control. So I'm not leaving Etsy entirely, but I am not going to continue to use it in the capacity that I have been for the last 9 years. So I hope you got something helpful out of this video. I did want to update you guys and let you know, because I have shared a little bit on here about how I've been filling Etsy orders and stuff. If you are an Etsy seller that has had a lot of success, but you're selling a lot, but you're struggling to keep up with it, my recommendation is to not put off self-care. It's a little bit like laundry, okay? So laundry will continue to happen, and there will always be more. Your orders will continue to happen. There will be more. Do not put off taking care of yourself or spending time with your family because you are wholly consumed in your business, because the business will continue. It feels like really high stakes. It feels urgent every time, but the world continues to revolve, and it'll be okay. Talking to myself here clearly. So take the time you need for you. It's okay to say no sometimes. Learn your systems. Learn what workflow works best for you, and then put up boundaries that are supportive of that. So I will see you guys on here a lot more. We're going to be doing market prep, and I don't have any markets until August, but once it starts rolling, it's going to really start rolling. So I would like to post some tutorials for you guys if you want to take some different things to markets, or if you just want to make some different things for yourself. And I'm also going to be sharing more about my market prep, because I need to get on the ball. So I hope it was helpful to you to see this. If you have questions, comments, suggestions, let me know. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you.